I'm going to walk you through how to do your Superman from a Jasmine as well as from an outside leg hang or your Gemini. Both options are great. Doing your Superman from a Jasmine can feel a little bit safer just because you're going to be lower to the ground. And also, if you don't have your invert up into your outside leg hang yet, that is also a great option. I personally prefer coming into it from an outside leg hang just because I like to slide my legs down the pole as I go into my Superman. And if I do the Jasmine entry, I tend to run out of room, like my feet hit the floor. So it's really personal preference and where you're at in your practice. I'll be showing you both entries. I also prefer outside leg hang entry because my back isn't very flexible. So I slide my legs down because it makes it easier for me to grab the pole. But if you have a really bendy back, then you probably won't have that same problem. That being said, there are lots of transitions from Superman that involve you having to slide your legs down anyway to get into, say, a shoulder mount or Titanic, other shapes like that. But I definitely recommend starting in a Jasmine if that feels good for you, or you don't have your invert yet, or if you want to go right into your outside leg hang, then into your Jasmine, so you're higher up the pole, and then into your Superman, that works just as well. So to come into your Superman, I'll show you from the floor first in your Jasmine. So you'll enter here, hooking your knee, and then coming into this position. So to transition into your Superman from here, what needs to happen is you need to release this leg completely off the pole. So think knee to chest as you rotate hips and chest down and then lift into your Superman from there. The biggest thing that I see happen when people are transitioning into their Superman is that they get stuck in that part where you're transitioning your chest and your hips towards the floor. So when you're turning into your Superman, you want to not only rotate your hips down to face the floor, but you want to rotate your chest down at the same time as you actively pull with that top hand to help you lift your chest and squeeze your inner thighs. Superman can be a little pinchy on your inner thighs. So that's why in a couple of other videos, I have some Superman conditioning drills and skin conditioning drills so that you can prep for your Superman. So that was the entry from your Jasmine, just straight from the floor. I'll show you that one more time from the floor, and I'll show you a modification that can be nice for those who feel like they need a little bit more ground support, because you can actually touch the hand that's not holding you in your Superman, so the one that's reaching out, you can touch that on the ground, kind of in like a plank position before lifting it up if you need that extra little boost. Eventually you won't touch the ground, but for now, while you're learning it, you can have that little modification. So you'll come into your Jasmine the same way. Okay, and then from here, I'm gonna rotate, knee to chest, hips down, hand down, and then lift up. And if you're a little bit lower to the ground where you can actually like flatten your hand and then come up, you'll get even more support. But obviously the goal is to not rely on your hand touching the ground. So try not to think too much about how low you are to the ground, because I want you to, of course, rely on what your legs are doing. So now I'm going to show you how to come into your Superman up the pole, and I'll demonstrate a little bit more of that slide that I was mentioning at the beginning of the video. I don't slide too much. Some people slide a lot. The amount of slide is really up to you and what you want your Superman to look like. You can have your Superman a lot more parallel or horizontal to the ground, or if you really want to go for sliding your legs further down the pole, your Superman might be on more of an angle, which is just as fine. So all I'm going to do differently is just come into my Jasmine from an outside leg hang so that I have a little bit more height between me and the ground. And as I walk you through this variation, I'll also cue what's happening in the straight leg in your Jasmine as well, since I just talked a lot about what you're doing with that top leg as well as your hip rotation. So I'll come up into my outside leg hang and then into my Jasmine from here. So this leg, I already have it in my hip crease and towards my inner thigh. This more or less will stay in the same spot as you rotate around. It'll shift a little more to your inner thigh, but just because you have to rotate to face the ground more rather than being sideways, but generally speaking, it'll stay in the same spot. So from here, I'm gonna again pull my knee to my chest, rotate hips and chest down, and then as I'm ready to send my hips down, I slide and lift my chest. And then I can come down from there. So that one I didn't slide too much, but I'll show you that again and see if I can get a little bit more slide to really emphasize that movement for you. But as you saw, everything is the same in that transition from when I just did Jasmine straight from the floor, as well as up from my outside leg hang. So I'll show you that one more time, and I'll change my angle a little bit. Okay, so I'm here in my Jasmine, and then I tuck my knee to my chest, turn everything around, hips down, chest up, slide my legs down. And then I can just step down from there. So there I got a little bit more slide. To get that slide, I also prefer it because it doesn't feel as pinchy to me, because when I rotate and I send my hips down and lift my chest up, I actually release the grip on my inner thighs a little bit so that I can get that slide down. And then when I want to stop sliding, then I squeeze from there. So you can feel how that feels on your skin. Personally, it feels better when I release the grip and let myself slide. So playing with the amount of squeeze that feels good for you to get into the position of your Superman that's best for you and your body and for whatever you're going for in your practice. So again, to recap, you can get into your Superman from your Jasmine straight off the floor with the option to touch your hand down in that transition, or you can get into your Superman up the pole and then have a little bit more height so that you can slide your legs down, which might be great for you if you're a little bit tighter in your back extension and you want to play more with the slide. Regardless, biggest thing when you're doing that transition from your Jasmine into your Superman, rotate chest and hips to face down at the same time. And then when you're ready to release that bottom hand, you lift your chest, drop your hips, and use your glutes to lift your heels up to the sky to try and find as much of an extension as possible. And if you're working on still desensitizing your skin, try some of the conditioning drills that I have in other videos. Over time, just practicing Superman, that sense of pinch will also go away.